I hope I'm coming in loud and clear. I'm very happy to be part of this forum. Hold on. I need to share my screen. There you go. Okay. All right. So I was invited to speak on democratic decay, and I was given 3 questions, and I would like to answer those 3 questions in the order they were given to me. So first, how does democracy decay? The image that you see there is a detail from a Juan Luna painting that shows a funeral in progress, and I think that's the mood of the day, so to speak. There have been a ton of books written in the last few years that traces the descent of many constitutional democracies into outright authoritarian regimes. I would like to choose these 3 because I think that they all have very important points for us to consider. First is probably the most famous one of them, How Democracies Die by Levitsky and Ziblatt. The 2 authors identify 4 key indicators of authoritarian conduct. 1, there's a rejection of or a very weak adherence to democratic rules of the game. 2nd, there is a denial of the legitimacy of political opponents or critics. 3rd, there is a toleration of or an encouragement of violence. And 4thly, there is a readiness to cut down on civil liberties such as free speech or a free press. The Turkish novelist and exile, Ese Temelkuran, in How to Lose a Country, traces the 7 steps in which Turkey under Erdogan deteriorated from a democracy into a dictatorship, while comparing it with the experience of other countries. And she described these 7 steps as follows. First, a populist leader creates a populist movement. Second, there is an ongoing campaign to disrupt reason and to abuse language. Third, there is a promotion of a culture of shamelessness. Fourth, the dismantling of judicial and political mechanisms. Fifth, if a political movement, a populist movement is based on the concept of the other, design your own citizen is that step where you embrace who the quote-unquote real people are, who the real citizens are. Sixth, you let them laugh at the horror, you normalize the abnormal situation. And 7th, with the real people, in quotes, you build your own country. Many times we have been caught, we catch ourselves wondering, is this the country I grew up in? That's a sign that someone is busy building another version of their country. How to save a constitutional democracy is by the constitutional scholars Ginsburg and Hook. And in their research, they identified 5 factors of democratic erosion. So first, you can change the constitution either through an amendment or through a thoroughgoing revision. Second, you eliminate institutional checks such as an independent court or an independent legislature. Third, you centralize executive power. Witness the series of sweeping special powers acts that have been enacted. Fourth, you eliminate political competition. And fifth, you shrink the democratic space, the public sphere. How is Duterte doing? Just a very quick check. I'm sure we can spend an entire afternoon or longer talking about this, but using Levitt and Ziblatt's 4-part schema, we can check all the boxes, in fact. Violence has been unleashed in the form of those extrajudicial killings, for instance. The opposition has been delegitimized. Senator Laila is spending has spent more than 3.5 years in prison. Lawsuits have been filed against opposition senators, and so on and so forth. Democratic norms have been undermined. The government itself is promoting a revolutionary government. The Supreme Court Chief Justice was ousted through an unconstitutional legal maneuver. And in 2019, it was very obvious that the state support for a particular candidate made that candidate win. And civil liberties have been curtailed. You can see the serial legal harassment of Rappler unfolding, and this one I did not at all expect to happen. The forced shutdown of the ABS-CBN TV networks and radio stations. And of course, there is this continuing insidious campaign of red tagging. This brings us to our second question. How does disinformation, the topic under discussion, affect democracy? How does it hasten democratic decay? And the image there is from a Juan Luna sketch for Noli Me Tangere. Those are San Diego townsfolk, I don't know, maybe talking about the rumor. With your indulgence, I'm going to talk about the public sphere, which I picked up from the last point of Ginsburg and Hook, because this is the topic that I'm teaching in my classes right now. So might as well, hit two birds with one stone, right? But I'm not going to talk about the public sphere as theorized only by Habermas. I want to update it for an quote-unquote actually existing democracy, as Nancy Fraser has done. Habermas' famous definition of the public sphere is that it is the space where private individuals come together as a public body in order to discuss matters of general interest, using public reason, the tools of public reason being debate, dialogue, voting, and so on. Now, Nancy Fraser has updated this, and let's take a look at four fundamental elements of the public sphere. It's a public body, yes, but Nancy Fraser reminds us that it was being made up of truly equal citizens. It is a public space, yes, physical as well as mental, but Nancy Fraser reminds us that the public sphere is actually not one comprehensive, gigantic thing, but rather a plurality, a multiplicity of public spheres, including public spheres, counter-publics, occupied by dominated classes, not dominant classes. Public sphere depends on the exercise of public reason. And for Nancy Fraser, she updates Habermas by saying, it's not just public matters that are discussed, it is matters of real importance. So for instance, today, it is a fit subject for public discourse, for public reason to discuss, for instance, domestic abuse. A generation ago, that was said, people said, okay, that's just under, we don't talk about it. No? It's the same thing with sexual abuse in the Catholic Church. Now it's, people need to talk about it. It's a matter of real importance. And lastly, the fourth fundamental element is the formation of public opinion. But Nancy Fraser updates the theory by saying society, in fact, has a dual power. It does not only generate public opinion, but then influences the state. Private persons from society can actually take part in the actual governance. For instance, showing up in congressional hearings, drafting laws, and so on and so forth. So this is a summary, a very quick summary of the public sphere. And disinformation distorts this. How does disinformation distort the public sphere? First, fundamental element, public body. So I'm just going to give two examples of the distortions per factor, per fundamental element. The public sphere as a public body is distorted by information because disinformation exploits the inequalities. There are very real existing economic, political, cultural, educational inequalities, even inequalities in access to the internet. This disinformation manipulates the difference. At the same time, disinformation also undermines the public body because it subverts the role of the media. The media is important in the public sphere because once a community grows too large, you need the resources of media to keep in touch with each other. Benedict Anderson's idea of an imagined community cannot be imagined without the resources of media. And disinformation undermines, subverts the credibility, the trustworthiness of the media. The second fundamental element, the public sphere is a public space. Disinformation exploits the multiplicity of the public spaces. It pits one public, small public against another. Not only that, for instance, as in the QAnon phenomenon in the United States, it fabricates new counter-publics. Third fundamental element, the public sphere uses public reason. How does disinformation distort public reason? It undermines reason itself. It promotes an anti-scientific, anti-science attitude. Ikaw na ang magaling, an anti-fact, anti-education attitude. And secondly, disinformation distorts public reason by confusing the public through what has been called the fire hose of falsehood. There are so many lies, so many orchestrated falsehoods. The point is not for us to believe all of them. The point is for them to confuse us. And then we can no longer distinguish between what is true and what is false. And lastly, the fourth fundamental element, public impact. Disinformation distorts the public sphere because instead of society generating public opinion in order to influence the state, it is the state manipulating public opinion. And why will it do that? The state abuses public opinion in order to enforce order, alignment with its political objectives. The third question, how do we stop democratic decay? Is it even possible to stop it? The image is a detail from the country's most famous painting, Spolarium, of course by Juan Luna. And it suggests that we're in a life or death struggle. So this is my last slide. There are many things that we can do. I would like to suggest 6 tasks that we can do every day. Number 1, do not normalize abuse. Abuse of office, abuse of language, abuse of norms. When you see it happening, call it out. Support institutions. Support countervailing institutions. Do not amplify fake or false information. Defend journalists. They are playing a key role in keeping our democracy together. Do not despair. Last but not least, focus and organize. We might all feel distracted, uncertain, skeptical, doubtful. That's fine. It's important for all of us to agonize, but after we agonize, we organize. We organize our study circles, we organize our Viber groups, we organize our alumni associations, our parish councils, our clan reunions. So let me end on a note struck by the great playwright, Floy Quintos, in the Kundiman Party. And he reminds us that our task as citizens is threefold. Sing, remember, resist. Thank you.